Maria Abdi İbrahim, çocuğu Barnevernet tarafından koruyucu aileye verilen onlarca ebeveynden yalnızca biri. 2009'da Kenya'da doğan bebeğiyle Norveç'e mülteci olarak gelen İbrahim'in çocuğu, tehlikede olduğu iddiasıyla itirazlarına rağmen annesinden alınarak 2010'da Hristiyan koruyucu aileye verildi.
Trying to find a new identity in Norway, and she said, nevertheless, that I don't want my child, to become like them, a Norwegian Christian, and the reply of the authorities was that, look, here in Europe, children are allowed to find their own identity.
Barnevernet yetkilileri ise hiçbir sistemin sorunsuz olamayacağını, sistemi iyileştirmek için çalıştıklarını savunuyor. Norveç'teki çocuk koruma servisi Barnevernet'in uygulamaları uzun süredir eleştirilerin odağında olmaya devam ediyor. Barnevernet'in özellikle göçmen ailelerin çocuklarını kötü muamele sebebiyle devlet koruması altına alması 2015'te ülke ve dünya gündeminde tepkilere neden oldu. Çocuklarını Barnevernet kaybeden aileler Norveç mahkemelerinden sonuç alamayınca davalarını Avrupa İnsan Hakları Mahkemesi'ne taşıdı. Avrupa İnsan Hakları Mahkemesi, Barnevernet davalarının çoğunluğunda ailelerin lehine karar verdi.
Norway has been convicted several times in respect of Article 8 of the Convention, which protects the right to family life.
Maria Abdi İbrahim, çocuğu Barnevernet tarafından koruyucu aileye verilen onlarca ebeveynden yalnızca biri. 2009'da Kenya'da doğan bebeğiyle Norveç'e mülteci olarak gelen İbrahim'in çocuğu, tehlikede olduğu iddiasıyla itirazlarına rağmen annesinden alınarak 2010'da Hristiyan koruyucu aileye verildi.
It's been so hard for her to take her child here to Norway to protect him and then ending up losing him so shortly to the Norwegian authorities. But I think that she was not given all the help she could have been given, and maybe the authorities and the child services didn't understand quite. She was very young. She hadn't been to school, like a normal Norwegian teenager. She had to figure everything out for herself in Norway, and she was being really brave. And I feel that it must have been very isolating for her to come to Norway, not be able to speak the language, not be able to understand the social code, and she was being held maybe to the same standard as applied to maybe a woman of, that was maybe speaking Norwegian, was older and had everything in life together.
This lady, Abdi Ibrahim, was clearly, was struggling with the different identities, trying to find a new identity in Norway, and she said, nevertheless, that I don't want my child, to become like them, a Norwegian Christian, and the reply of the authorities was that, look, here in Europe, children are allowed to find their own identity. So you give this, very, how shall I say, brutal response to somebody who's somehow struggling to integrate, to find their place in Norwegian society. What kind of signal are we giving to this, poor mother, who is also, trying to find her place in Europe, in Norwegian society? So I thought, that from the integration point of view, there was a clear failure, that the woman was getting all the wrong signals.
Barnevernet, çocukların devlet korumasına alındıktan sonraki süreçte aileleriyle sınırlı iletişime izin vermesinin yanı sıra çocuğun aileyle tekrar birleşemeyeceğine yönelik acele kararlarıyla da eleştiriliyor.
Seems to be very, very concerned about the fact that the Norwegians used to consider immediately that the children that were taken into public care will not be reunited with the family, with the natural parent.
The first thought should be, is there anything we can do for the child to remain at home with biological parents? Do they need help? Maybe, is it so bad that the child really needs to be taken away from parents? Or is it something, can we give some sort of help to the parents? Because also Barnevernet, they have a duty, according to the law here in Norway, to offer help?
Adequate contact between the child in foster care and the natural parents. The Norwegian authorities considered that the children will stay away from the natural parents, and precisely for this reason there was very limited contact. So there were contact visits, for example, 2 or 3 times per year, 2 hours each time, And then the conclusion 2-3 years later was that the child didn't have any real bond with the natural parents. But it was precisely the decision of the authorities to limit contact with the natural parents that led to the non-existence of the natural bond. So somehow, the authorities were creating conditions that eventually lead to the adoption of the child.
Those cases are never easy to work with. They are difficult, also for me as a lawyer, because not only for me as a lawyer, but more like for me as a human being, because it concerns children, it concerns splitting up families, taking children away from their parents, and I see desperate parents who love the children and want to have them back. And of course, many of them feel powerless, many feel desperate to get the children back, and that affects me as a person.
This is somebody who has suffered a lot in her life. She comes here in order, to build a new future. I mean, the judgment talks about some kind of inadequacy, that in the beginning she could not take care of the child. We can imagine, that her inability to take care of the child might have had to do with the trauma that she has gone through, So my feeling is, that people like her, should be understood, because the first reply that she got, that here in Europe things are done differently, shows lack of understanding, should be understood, should be supported, and should be helped to integrate in European society,
Barnevern yetkilileri ise hiçbir sistemin sorunsuz olamayacağını, sistemi iyileştirmek için çalıştıklarını savunuyor. Barnevern'in bağlı olduğu Norveç Çocuk, Gençlik ve Aile İşleri Müdürlüğü'nün Uluslararası Departman Direktörü Kristin Upstad Steinram, AA muhabirine yaptığı yazılı açıklamada hiçbir sistem mükemmel değildir. Hatalar olabilir ve bu nedenle Norveç'teki çocukların güvenli bir şekilde yetiştirilmelerini sağlamak için çalışmalarımızı her zaman geliştirmeye çalışıyoruz dedi. Tartışmaların odağında olan Barnevern'in eleştiriler ve Avrupa İnsan Hakları Mahkemesi kararları nedeniyle yaklaşım ve karar süreçlerinde değişikliğe gittiği biliniyor. Barnevern'de yapılan değişikliklerin etkili olup olmayacağını ise zaman gösterecek.
And the court has criticized this very much in many judgments. And now the Norwegian authorities have had to change their legislation. There will be real change, and it will be hugely satisfactory if